Chapter 8 of Man and Nature on the Broads by Arthur Henry Patterson. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. August in Broadland. Oh, the gallant fisher's life, it is the best of any. 'Tis full of pleasure, void of strife, and 'tis beloved of many. For our skill breeds no ill, but content and pleasure. By Isaac Walton. The fair warm days of August dawn upon ripening fields that are white unto the harvest. The sound of the whetting of scythes becomes as familiar in the countryside as the chirping of sparrows in the hedgerows, and the hum of bees among the gaudy wildflowers. There is little time for leisure just now at the farm, for Hodge and Farmer Giles, his master, are taking advantage of the weather. Every fine day has become precious. The depredations of the swarming birds and the fear of sudden storms make it imperative that the fields should be shorn of their wealth and beauty with all possible haste. It has been market day to day, and one by one, as their stalls have been stripped of the produce of the coop and garden patch and the output of the dairy, the country folk have harnessed their horses and turned their heads homewards. It is a pleasing sight on a market morning to see the heavily laden carts, with springs strained to their very utmost, piled up with the good things of this life, coming rumbling into town. Those who hold the reins, and those who sit beside the driver, are more quaintly dressed than picturesque, and the broad Norfolk patter they dispense in the market place is quainter still. Behold us in the afternoon of a hot August day jog-trotting along upon a tough old vehicle that has rattled backwards and forwards these many years. The painter has not seen it since it first left his hands. A towy-headed rustic, with a broad-brimmed felt hat turned down in the orthodox fashion, has the reins, and old Nelson, whose pace, in spite of threats and persuasions, has not altered one whit since we started, is shambling doggedly along. The good man's missus is sitting on our right. Between two such substantial mortals we feel quite small. We may not describe her habiliments, they are more than half a century behind the city fashions. Our driver takes great pains to point out with his lashless whipstalk everything that he imagines of interest to us, from the churches and parsonages which peer out from between crowding trees, to the barley in the harvest field that is ready for the carting. His talk is of all that is rural, and of not a little that isn't. ' 'Bor,' he says, 'farmin' ain't what it wor when I was a youngster. There's a heap of things as have altered since the good old days long ago, when gleaners picked up the stray ears, and harvest home wor one of the sights and most pleasant doin's of the country. Law, the poetry's all knocked out of it, what with the bringin' in of machinery and the buyin' up of corn from them furriners, the hull thing's got transmogorified. Time was when the sickle and the scythe cud du what wor required, but folks ha' got a sight too go ahead nowadays, and now you must hev a heap of machines a cuttin' out labour and doin' the thing so grandly. But sorry times ha' dawned on us for all that 'ere, and ain't likely to batten while them 'Mericans and Russians send their ships with many a ton, and do it cheaper too. The willages ha' got behindhand too, for many a labourer leaves 'em for the towns. But theer, 'bor, yow know as much about that and the evil days we've lived to see, as I can tell yer of 'em. Good arternoon, Mrs. Gammut,' is the salute he treats an old lady to, who is alternately whacking and jerking the reins of a scraggy and ancient donkey that is slowly trundling the aged soul along. Mrs. Gammut has been to the town for her washings, as the baskets of linen piled up in her little cart bear witness. It was early morning when the obstinate Dicky left his stable, in which he hopes to munch his supper by nightfall. The surviving folk of an almost obsolete generation take things easier than the present, and live the longer for their unambitious jog trot, doubtless. Mrs. Gammut bids us ' arternoon,' and amidst her heaps of linen essays a little curtsey. Ere we get our supper at the Marshman's quiet cottage, we ramble out into the dusty lane. We could not loiter to admire the campions dotting the hedge banks with their whites and pinks, or the pale pink bells of the bindweed. There is a perceptible decrease in the number of wildflowers. Those which are yet unfolding their petals are bright and gaudy. Here we find the stately corn bluebottle, the scarlet pimpernel, yellow hawkweeds, spreading mallows, scarlet poppies, and many another. Insects of many species dance to and fro above the flowers, and the low-flying swallows and martins are busy snapping a supper from amongst their heedless swarms. There is a promise of rain. Dark patches of cloud, scarcely larger than a man's hand, are hastening up from the west'ard, those behind growing larger and lumpier as they journey towards the east. The dust is lifted from the roadway with the puffs of wind that fitfully travel before the advancing shower, and whirl it upon the hedges, enveloping the passer-by in its dirty shroud. The fir trees sway to and fro as it increases, and the willows flutter their pennon leaves as if eager to catch the hastening raindrops. High overhead some great grey gulls are ' shailing ' in erratic flight, making seaward. At the Broadside the reeds and sedges are swaying and bending before the breeze, rustling their stiff leaves and tall stems against each other, till a murmur like the waves beating upon the seashore falls on the ear. The few remaining leafless stems of an older growth crackle and fall one by one, to float awhile as at anchor, and then to sink beneath the surface and find burial in the waters, as their predecessors did before them. The sedge birds have ceased their merry warbling and chirp discontentedly. Feeding and perching have become hampered and irksome in the troubled reed clump. The rain patters down in a smart drenching shower. Out on the Broad the coots and moorhens are revelling in the shower bath. The grebe and its striped progeny paddle out boldly into the open. It is unpleasant, tramping and crouching beside the hedgerows. They afford but a sorry shelter, and the finer particles from the baffled raindrops filter through the thorn sprays. The briar smells all the sweeter for the refreshing moisture, and vegetation in general, that wash the dust and dinginess from the myriad leaves. The wildflowers are gayer too. They will be smiling and looking at their best with the return of the sunshine. How the wind shakes the stiff old oak branches, and flutters the dark green ivy leaves that spring out as if from its gnarled trunk. Note yon slender pied wagtails nimbly running by that roadside puddle. The rain troubles them little so long as it washes the gnats and midges within reach of their mandibles. The rooks upon the old elm trees are not nearly so well pleased. It is a sorry time they are having while the rough wind is shaking the twigs and grass bents from their family mansions. With drooping and bedraggled wings they are hoping the squall will soon have passed, and that another hour's grubbing may yet be done before nightfall. The songbirds have ceased their merrymaking. Even the lark has dropped in the stubble dispirited, and has finished his song. But the wind is subsiding. The thick clouds have parted, and streaks of blue peer through with the sunlight. The storm is over. Dead twigs lie scattered along the roadway. The roadside hollows are filled with turbid water. Raindrops hang from leaf and flower, sparkling with the lustre of so many pearls and diamonds. The birds are again joyous, and many are warbling their delight in a song of gladness. There is a rainbow in the east, and the sinking sun is kissing all nature into a blush of beauty. Tints of purple and gold gather in the west, and a crimson glow paints the horizon as he slowly recedes from view. The harvestmen who have been ' standing up ' for shelter are hastening homeward, our old friend Jim Trett amongst them. It is almost needless to say we enter into a friendly confab, which finishes at the Broad margin, where we take leave of him to enjoy a quiet half hour in the gloaming and quietude of evening. It were intensely quiet but for the varied sounds which nature makes around us. There is quite a riot, indeed, in the reed bed. The crowding starlings are squabbling for roosting places for the night. Bunch after bunch have been dropping in this half hour. They have filled their crops with grubs and beetles, have executed their characteristic gyrations in the air, and would settle to nap till early morning. But each fresh company on arrival disturbs its luckier companions, who protest against the invasion of their rights. The moorhen's harsh croak is frequent, and other less familiar notes are heard at intervals. The t'ik of the partridge resounds in the fields, and the soft cooing of the turtle dove issues from the leafy wood. The hirundines are still dashing to and fro. A small wading bird flies past us, uttering a peculiarly shrill piping cry, which we recognise as that of the green sandpiper. A freshly ' fied out ' dyke we passed has had some attraction for it, no doubt. This species loves to hunt among the debris of the ditches. Hearken to that queer jarring sound. It is like the shaking of a rattle or the turning of a rope maker's wheel. It is none other than a fern owl or nightjar doing his best at an evensong. Moths had need wear fern owl, for his capacious mouth makes sepulchre for the largest of their race. The busy dor hawk chases the white moth with burring note. The bats and owls are rousing themselves in the village steeple. They will be out ere many a diurnal creature has tucked its head under wing, or curled up its furry body for its nightly sleep. Big fish are rolling near the surface as if in play, and many a luckless fly is snapped up as it floats across their vision. The distant boom of a fowling piece is now and again heard. The wild fowler is lying in wait for ' flappers ' or young ducks, whose young lives trickle out with their blood. Their first short flights across their native Broad are often fatal to the species. Supper in the marshman's cottage we may not dare dwell upon, but the enjoyable feast over, we turn into our sleeping quarters and leaving ourselves to the care of Him who neither slumbers nor sleeps, are soon in the realms of nod, heedless of the bright pale harvest moon shining through the latticed windows, with the honeysuckle making strange patterns in the shadows that fall upon our coverlet. It is an early rising lark that is up before us in the morning. The martins twittering in their rude clay huts above our window have scarcely peeped out to welcome the sunrise ere we are doing the same. A jolly day's fishing is in prospect, for the wind bids fair and the fish are well upon the feed. Then we have some lady friends coming to Broadland to day, and if we can but persuade them not to be fidgeting about and wanting to pull here and there and sing and laugh, our happiness will be complete. But ladies, for sure, are never so restless as when upon the water. They must gather bulrushes and reeds, and pluck the yellow iris and those lovely water lilies. And they, the ladies, are irresistible. And what man is there who dares disregard their imperative demands? On our way to the village station to meet them, we encounter an individual whose doings interest us. He is a little old man of 60 summers at a guess. There is a dash of something superior about him. We edge him into a chat and find him communicative. He hails from a neighbouring city. "I'm from Norwich, sir. I'm Norwich bred and born. A good old city that, with its 40 churches and its 100,000 folk, and a better people, take them on the whole, you'll not find in old England." What do I mean by that? I'll tell you, sir. There is not a more unclannish folk. They're open hearted, free, and always ready to give a hand to an unfortunate fellow citizen. I won't say more, or you'll think I'm clannish. What am I? Well, I do anything just now. They call me the Fern Man, and it's ferns you see to day I'm gathering. Here's lady ferns, spleenworts, and prickly shield ferns. Many folks have a taste for this kind of wild plant, and what looks better in a dingy backyard than a nicely arranged fernery? You see, sir, it's like this. I wasn't brought up to this kind of thing. I am a comp by trade, a printer, you know. But getting my right hand crippled, see it, in the machinery, I was of no further use. I met with much kindness, but you know, you can't live always on it. At least I couldn't, and after turning Micawber for a time, I thought 'twas time to turn up something for myself. I was always gone on botany and natural history in general. So thinks I, when I saw some ferns in a hedge one day, here's just it. So, getting a ped, I filled it, and leaving a bit of pride behind me, started business. I soon cleared out, and that's how one thing led on to another. In the various seasons I hunt for watercresses, ferns, primroses, sweetbriar, and other wild flowers, taking commissions for gathering specialties for cooped up folks who have tastes akin to my own. Why, only to day I'm taking home this bundle of dandelions for a herbalist, and this bunch of wild plants to a botanist, who particularly wants them and hasn't time to come himself. I met with a stroke of luck not long back. I found a species of orchis. They named it Gorgiera repens. It was growing amongst some firs. They said it was imported with the trees from Scotland. Where did the luck come in? Why, with the crown that followed. I don't confine myself to greenstuffs. Anything in the way naturalistic that turns up, I take it on. Oh, by the by, I've a splendid snake here. Here he is. I tied him in this little bag. I heard a funny squealing just behind a hedge. I peered cautiously through and saw a sight that much interested me. It was a wretched frog that was protesting. This snake had got him by the leg. The frog was kicking in a dazed sort of way, as if he felt it was all over with him. One leg was down the reptile's throat, the other hind leg was free. It was really exciting to see, and I stayed to watch the finale, which came about eventually in the frog's going down, poor thing. And this swelling in the snake shows how far on his travels the four-legged reptile's gone as yet. The squirming grass snake is replaced in his bag, and the heavily laden little man plods on again, and his tongue keeps equal pace. Natterjack toads and common toads I never pass by, sir, for many folks like them in their gardens and their greenhouses, where they earn their living snapping up insects. Newts and lizards I've a market for, and the tenants of the ditches have to mind their p's and q's when aquaria need replenishing. Much more does the old man say, which space forbids to detail. After a jolly walk we find ourselves afloat. We shall not expect to see many bearded tits or wildfowl or coots or moorhens, or to have the willing company of many a little reed-loving songster to day, for other warblers in the boat will do the singing, and snatches of familiar boating songs will be the order of the day, no doubt. And is it not well in every sphere of life that the ladies are more volatile than men? Why, bless you, phlegmatic man has much to be thankful for when light-hearted, hopeful, sunshiny woman throws her pretty shadow across his pathway. The plumy tufts of the now perfect reeds nod in the breeze, and the tall pokers of the bulrushes bend to peep at their reflex in the clear waters below them. And the water lilies, spreading their great green leaves and opening their snowy flowers, put the finishing touches to many a lovely corner of Broadland. We make for one end of the Broad, behind whose reedy margin rise low hills of cultivated land. The water round us has a greenish tint. Into it we quietly drop our huge flintstone anchors. The view from the stern of the boat is pretty. There is a maze of little islands which look like floating flower beds. Water hemlocks, water plantains, purple loosestrife, and the pink willow herb show up their large green leaves and pretty flowers in profusion, and the pointed spear leaves guard the pale yellow irises. Sedges and reeds and rushes, with dark green alders and willows, fill in the background. Our tackle and rods are soon put together, ground bait is thrown over, and we seriously settle to angling. We have for our factotum shipped a native, who at once becomes a guide, philosopher, and friend, and it is due to him that much of the flightiness of our lady friends tones down into something akin to real interest and earnestness, for his amusing dialect and store of local information win their attention and their love of novelty. He unreels much that others of his kith and kin have already told us of the birds and of the fens and fenfolk, although to him the days when the ruffs and reeves and many another present day rarity were common are nothing more than the traditions of his elders. Yet he has had sport in his time. Why, bless yer, He'd known the Broads for as hard as woolflints in the winter, and ha' seen fowl and swans in oceans driv this 'ere way by bad wather, and a flyin' round and round the place, regular hard up for grub and water. Once, and only 2 winters ago,' he says, ' I done a stroke of shootin' as many an old gunner would ha' thought worth the doin' in the old times. It had blowed and snewed for a couple of days, and there, sir, yow had a splendid bite just now. You've got him. I told you so.' We strike and haul out a big slimy bream, but not before he has given a little bit of protest and made his exit from his native haunts a warning to the friends he has left for ever, unless they be heedless and share a like untimely fate. I was sayin', sir, it snewed. Law, the hivens were black as thunder clouds, and the Broad were kivered with a couple of feet of ice. Old Prickleback Thacker and me got leave to do a day's shootin' on the ice, the gent at the Hall bein' a bit partial to me. And we went up there with our old 8-bores and a hatchet. Up and down the poor birds was flyin', and as soon as they seed the open patch of water, and some chaff we'd thrown in a floatin' on it, in they plumped. We were ahind a heap of faggots, and if you believe me, we blazed away several times, picking up near 20 pokers (pochards), a dozen wild duck and mallard, several teal, and amongst 'em a number of rattlewings (golden eyes), and a lovely black and white weasel duck, what yow'd call a smoo. We filled a sack, didn't say much about it, and sold 'em at a dacent figure at a Norwich poulterer's. You've got a fish, lady. Now then, let me shove the net under. Steady a bit. Keep the line taut. Now wind up a bit. Now we've got him. And as nice a perch it is as I've seen for a wery long chalk. If it ain't a 2-pounder, my name ain't Sharman.' Nothing more out of the common falls a prey to the allurements of our well cleansed lobworms. Bream, mostly under a pound in weight, chance time one above it, a few heedless little roach, and now and then a perch, or a succession of them, make our floats dance and vanish. There is fun galore, though what is fun to you is death to us, the hapless fish might tell us. Even the squeamishness of the fair sex vanishes in the excitement of the pastime, and the most fugitive thought that anglers savours of the cruel and the ungodly appears to have flitted also. May we not have felt like old Walton in his vindication of an angler's innocence? For so our Lord was pleased when He fishers made fishers of men, where, which is in no other game, a man may fish and praise His name. In the meantime, Sharman has been most graciously communicative. There ain't much as'll beat fishin' when the fish'll bite, sir, and we ain't doin' badly this mornin'. Why, I've took fooks on here afore, and fished the hull day out athwart a sorry scale comin' up. How many fish ha' we got in Broadland? Well, lemme see, there's over a score. I'll run 'em over. Perch, yeller bream, roach, roud (rudd), silver bream, ruffs — that's one you now hauled in, miss. Minners (minnows), gudgeons, pikes, some on them whoppers. Tench and miller's thumbs, them's all common. Then there's crucian carp, and the t'other carp, which is as artful as a lawyer, and trout higher up the river. Them I know on. And I've heerd say there's loach, and p'raps a few chub, and maybe one or two more, but I ain't seen 'em, and seein's believin', ain't it? I ain't mentioned eels. Well, you don't hardly call 'em fish. What are they then? Why, eels in course. There's two sorts of them. Lor, 'tis a pity we Norfolk dumplins can't make good use on 'em when we've caught 'em. Seems such a pity to chuck a catch of 3 or 4 stun on the bank to feed the flies and rats with, and breed the most fearful stenches. They tell me in some parts they make 'em a credit to the fryin' pan. I don't see why we shouldn't have better kinds of fish introduced, suffin' as we can eat. Jest yow try your cook with a couple of breams, sir. If she don't chuck 'em to the cat and fry you a haddock instead, my name ain't Sharman. You see, they don't fare to know how to make 'em tasty. Fish are queer 'uns. They have whims and fancies jest like Christians, and are a sight more knowin' than we think 'em. Such is a sample of our factotum's extemporore lecture. The man seems a kind of talking machine, and a Broadland encyclopaedia in one, as most of your fen folk are when fellow feeling makes us kin. But once break through that thin crust of reserve, and edge them out of their monosyllables, and they unwind to an extent that is surprising. Reader, did you ever escort a lass to the railway station after a day's frolic in the country? You know what packages went out, and what an increase, alas, came back again. Such bundles of flowers and reeds and grasses and what not. You were glad when your faltering footsteps reached the station threshold. Pity us, then, with a brace of them, with a weight of our own paraphernalia, and some of the largest of the fishes, for they've determined to cook them. Cook them, mark you. And then those bundles, and yet we have some pleasant recollections of that delightful August day in the Broadland. Chapter 9